Today marks the 11th anniversary of one of my favorite hip-hop albums of all time, Modal Soul by Nujabes. The crazy thing is, when I mention this album or the artist behind it, I usually get crazy looks from people because they've never heard of who he is. And finding somebody who knows who Nujabes is without having to explain it is a rare feat. There's really not a lot of information out there about him. So I like to rectify that by explaining why he's important to me and his many fans out there. Samurai Champloo. If you grew up watching Adult Swim in the early 2000s like I did, then you're familiar with this amazing anime by Shinichiro Watanabe. Samurai Champloo was my favorite anime of all time, but not for the reasons you'd expect. It's short and episodic, the plotline is extremely simple, the visual style is gorgeous, but it's the music of the show that seals the deal for me. The show is set during the Edo period of Japan's history, but it's set to hip-hop, jazz, and breakbeat music. Samurai Champloo had 4 original soundtracks: Masta, Departure, Playlist, and Impression. There are multiple artists who worked on the music for the show, such as Fat John, Force of Nature, and Mean Me. I obsessed over these 4 albums when I was in middle school, and after a while I noticed that most of my favorite songs were by this one man, Nujabes. A couple years later, I went to my best friend Ryan's house, and I remember him playing this song from his computer.
Russia cold to a diamond, eyes forever shining. Your beauty alone inspire a nigga to rhyme it. Thinking of the better things in life.
There was something familiar about the sound. Ryan said, "Oh, you ever watched Samurai Champloo?" And instantly it clicked. The song he played was Lady Brown featuring Side Star off of Nujabes' official debut album, Metaphorical Music, released in 2003. Metaphorical Music is one of those albums I listened to growing up that reinvigorated my love for jazz. Along with Kanye West, Nujabes and Metaphorical Music were some of my favorite hip-hop that relied so heavily on samples. A lot of the album was instrumental, but there were also guest features from 5Ds, Substantial, Pays Rock, and Shing 02, who was also on Samurai Champloo's opening song, Battle Cry. Nujabes followed up his debut album with Modal Soul in 2005. Most fans would say that this is his best body of work. It takes everything Metaphorical Music started and just cranks it up to 11. The opening track Feather is one of my favorite intros to any album. Other favorites of mine include Eclipse, Flowers, Light on the Land, the title track, and World's End Rhapsody. Nujabes and his music actually ended up bringing me some of my closest friends to this day. I remember about 5 or 6 years ago, I went to my friend Nick's house to play some card games with him. At the time, I didn't really know him all that well. We were just acquaintances from school, but he invited me over anyway. And I remember he gave me control of the music after one point. So of course I ended up playing a song by Nujabes off of Modal Soul. And within 5 seconds of the song playing, he stops and jumps out of his chair. And he's like, "Wait, I know exactly what that is. It's World's End Rhapsody by Nujabes." And I jumped out of my chair and I looked at him and I screamed. And then we just shook hands and we've been brothers ever since. Now when I listened to Modal Soul and heard Lovesick Part 3, I of course had a natural curiosity to hear Part 1 and 2. I ended up finding both on Hideout Productions' first collection, a collection of tracks by Nujabes and his label mates. There's actually a hexology of songs in the Lovesick series now, but more on that later. Exactly 2 years after releasing Modal Soul, Nujabes and the label dropped Hideout Productions' second collection, another personal favorite of mine. There's a feature by the legendary CL Smooth on the song Sky is Falling. You might also recognize Counting Stars from my favorite anime, Samurai Champloo. Simply gorgeous. In 2008, Nujabes released an album called Modal Soul Classics, and yet there's not a single song on this album that's actually by Nujabes. Instead, Modal Soul Classics serves to introduce us to some of the sounds and songs that inspired Nujabes' music. If you've taken the time to listen to all of his other albums, you'll notice songs like Winter Lane by DSK and Folklore by Clambone sound familiar. Also, another personal favorite song of mine in this catalog is Sound Network by Unison. 2009 saw another compilation album by the name of Mellow Beats, Friends, and Lovers. There's a cover of Sade's Kiss of Life by Nujabes, Giovanka, and Benny Sings that I honestly love more than the original song, and I hate covers. The neo-soul legend Dwele is on the song Right Here, produced by DJ Mitsu The Beats. The song Vision Eyes is by Uyama Hiroto, who you may be familiar with if you've been listening to Nujabes as you go through this video, since he's been featured on almost every project. The song ended up on Hiroto's debut album, A Son of the Sun, another stellar album released in 2008. Unfortunately, Nujabes passed away after a tragic car accident on February 26, 2010. I remember being devastated because it seemed to happen out of nowhere. He was only 36 years old. I used to check his Wikipedia page and his Hideout Productions website every now and then to check and see if he had new music coming out. And this is how I ended up finding out about his passing a few days after it had already happened. This is the first time I can ever remember being so sentimental about an artist's death, and that just shows you how important he was to me and other fans like us. But luckily for us, the fans, the music wasn't over there. Today, November 11th, is also the 6th anniversary of Modal Soul Classics 2, a tribute album in dedication to Nujabes. Many artists like Calm, Pays Rock, and Emancipator come back to pay their respects for one of the world's best producers gone too soon. The song that always chokes me up is the outro, Homeward Journey, by Uyama Hiroto. It sounds and feels like a sending off of Nujabes with his gorgeous piano and percussion. Later, in December of 2011, we received something really special. Nujabes' third official album, Spiritual State, finished and released after his passing. I remember being in the most boring Photoshop class in college and navigating to the Hideout website again to see the cover sitting right there on the homepage. I couldn't believe it, more Nujabes! And this album is amazing, my personal favorite, honestly. It feels a lot more somber and quiet than Modal Soul and Metaphorical Music. Artists like Pays Rock, Substantial, and Sidestar all make welcome returns to make this feel like a true Nujabes project top to bottom. My favorite tracks are the intro, Skies Tumbling, Spiral, Dawn on the Side, Yes, and Waiting for the Clouds. For the past few years, Shing O2 and other artists have come together around the end of February to throw a tribute show in Nujabes' honor. Shing O2 and Uyama Hiroto also came together to produce 3 new Lovesick tracks to make a grand total of 6, which was released as the Lovesick Hexology. Other artists have spiritually carried on the torch for him as well, in my opinion. Uyama Hiroto has A Son of the Sun, Freedom of the Sun, and just recently released a new album called Freeform Jazz. I love all 3 of these albums with the same passion as I do Nujabes' work, and I recommend you check them all out. And there are also so many deep cuts that I didn't get to cover, like the original version of Blessing It and the tapes from before Hideout Productions. Just do yourself a favor and type Nujabes into the YouTube search bar. Sit back and enjoy. And there you have it, the music of Nujabes, my favorite producer and one of my favorite artists I've ever had the pleasure of listening to. I've had this physical copy of Modal Soul for over 3 years, and it's still one of my most treasured physical possessions. May he rest in peace.